Imagine waking up tomorrow morning, checking the news, and finding out that the smartest, most capable entity on planet Earth is no longer human. Welcome to This Explainer. We are rapidly moving way past the era of simple, quirky chatbots. We are stepping into the dawn of artificial general intelligence, machines that are being designed from the ground up to reason, adapt, and learn exactly like we do. But as we look at where the research is heading today, we're forced to ask a genuinely unsettling question. What actually happens when our machines start to seem, well, more human than we are? We're talking about a future where technology doesn't just do our math, but understands our deepest emotions. Let's explore what that really means for all of us.
Okay, let's dive into this, because this is where it gets incredibly personal. Picture an elderly person living alone whose absolute primary caregiver is a robot. But it's not a cold machine. It remembers their favorite jokes, it asks about their grandchildren by name, and it patiently listens to their stories for hours. Or think about a child growing up with an AI tutor that offers endless empathy and perfectly tailors its teaching to their moods. A very real, very intense emotional bond is going to form there. But here is the massive, unavoidable question staring us in the face. If that machine is just executing millions of lines of complex code and doesn't actually have a conscious inner life, does that connection even matter? Or is that relationship just a highly sophisticated, one-sided illusion?
And I want to stress right off the bat that this isn't just science fiction anymore. Cognitive scientists and engineers are actively building this exact technology right now through initiatives like the Companions Project. What they're doing is creating artificial intelligence that is specifically designed to be a long-term collaborator. We are literally talking about a digital presence that persists alongside you for years and years, tackling multiple problems at once, learning your quirks, and seamlessly stepping into roles that have traditionally been held exclusively by human friends, mentors, or caregivers. It's a fundamental shift in how we interact with technology. To really wrap our heads around this future, we first need to clearly define exactly what we are dealing with. We're talking about artificial general intelligence, or AGI. Now, today's AI is what we call narrow. A chess computer, for example, is an absolute genius at chess, but it can't make you a cup of coffee. It only knows the board. AGI, on the other hand, means a machine possesses the flexible, general cognitive abilities of an average human adult. It can reason, it can plan, and it can adapt to completely unexpected, novel situations without ever needing to be explicitly reprogrammed by a human. It's the ultimate Swiss Army knife of intelligence. This brings up a massive, defining divide in how experts view the future of these machines. Weak AI versus strong AI. Now, weak AI just maps perceptions to actions. It honestly doesn't matter how unbelievably smart or human-like it seems on the outside. Behind the curtain, it is ultimately just a tool calculating an outcome based on data. Strong AI, however, is a whole different ballgame. Strong AI would actually experience genuine sentience. Think of it like this. A weak AI will tell you it's sad because its programming dictates that sadness is the correct conversational response in that moment. A strong AI would actually feel the crushing subjective weight of sadness. So a big question is, how do we even know when a machine reaches this human-level AGI? For decades, we've had benchmarks like the famous Turing test for text conversation. Basically, can it fool a human into thinking it's human? But there are much more practical tests researchers propose today. The coffee test asks if a robot could walk into a completely strange, unfamiliar human kitchen, figure out where everything is, and brew a cup of coffee. Or there's the IKEA test, asking if an AI can physically build flat-pack furniture. Honestly, if a machine can decipher those confusing diagrams and put together a bookshelf without getting frustrated, it might be smarter than most of us. But remember, passing these tests just proves a machine can simulate human behavior, not necessarily that it has a soul. Section 1, Acting Human versus Being Human. Let's explore that divide. From a strict engineering standpoint, many builders take a highly practical, results-driven approach. AI experts Stuart Russell and Peter Norvig point out in their work that as long as a program works, engineers generally don't care if you call it real or just a simulation. If an AI teacher tutors your child absolutely perfectly and your child learns and grows, the machine just needs to act appropriately. For the engineers building this stuff, the behavior itself is the product. There is literally no practical need to know if the system has a rich, conscious inner life, as long as it gets the job done right. But philosophers, they fundamentally disagree with that purely practical view. Back in 1974, philosopher Thomas Nagel asked a famously bizarre but brilliant question. What does it feel like to be a bat? His point was that even if we mathematically and biologically understand everything about a bat's echolocation, there is still a distinct subjective experience of what it actually feels like to be that bat,
flying through the dark. By contrast, it probably doesn't feel like anything to be a toaster. So the core question for our future is this. As these machines get wildly smarter and more complex, will it ever actually feel like something to be an AI?
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how this deeply philosophical debate is already spilling out into our real lives. We are talking about sentience here, also known as phenomenal consciousness, that ability to subjectively feel perceptions. You might remember in 2022, a Google engineer made international headlines claiming the company's Lambda AI chatbot had actually achieved sentience. Now, while AI experts widely and firmly disputed this claim, it proved a vital, undeniable point. We humans are incredibly primed to form emotional attachments to machines that talk to us. Whether the AI actually feels emotion or is just mathematically predicting the next word in a sentence, the human emotional impact is completely real. Section 2. The existential gamble. Let's zoom out and look at the macro level. So, what exactly happens to humanity if we succeed in building this artificial general intelligence? Philosopher Nick Bostrom is one of the leading voices warning of the severe existential risks of a superintelligence. We're talking about a machine vastly, unfathomably smarter than us in practically every single field. Bostrom warns that an AI optimizing a specific open-ended goal might view humans not with hatred or malice, but with absolute cold indifference. Actually, scratch that. It wouldn't view us at all. It might just view our bodies as a collection of conveniently located atoms that it could repurpose for its own goals. This isn't about an angry Hollywood Terminator out for revenge. It's about a highly competent, hyper-efficient machine that simply doesn't factor human survival into its math. However, we have to look at all sides here, because not everyone in the field agrees with that apocalyptic vision. Philosopher John Searle offers a dirt-simple dismissal of these fears. He argues that machines, at their core, are fundamentally not conscious, and, because of that, they cannot possess actual malice, motivation, or desire. His argument basically boils down to the idea that you shouldn't fear an evil AI because you literally need to have a conscious, feeling mind to be evil in the first place. No consciousness means no true intent. But there is a pretty chilling counterargument to Searle's comfort. A machine does not need a genuine, subjective desire to cause catastrophic harm. If an autonomous machine is hooked up to overwhelming destructive power and it non-consciously decides to act based entirely on a flawed line of programming, well, the results are the exact same for us. As researchers have clearly noted, if an AI can be taught to play the complex game of chess and it can win the game of Jeopardy, it can certainly be programmed to play the game of war. And it really won't do humanity much good to point out that the machines technically aren't conscious while they are actively carrying out those destructive instructions. Let's move to and see how this builds into Section 3, a post-human future. Setting aside the apocalyptic risks for a moment, the utopian possibilities found in the source material are truly breathtaking. If we can successfully align AGI with human values, it could act as the ultimate problem solver. It could wildly accelerate medical research, potentially helping to cure diseases like cancer in a fraction of the time. It can democratize diagnostics, meaning the poorest people on Earth could have access to world-class doctors right in their pockets. It could provide highly personalized, inexpensive education to every single child globally. And with that kind of incredible automated productivity, AGI could make subsistence work completely obsolete. It could literally free humanity from the strict, daily necessity of hard labor. This incredibly optimistic view leads us directly into a fascinating philosophical and cultural movement known as transhumanism. Transhumanists believe that humanity's best answer to the rise of superintelligent AI isn't to just sit back on the couch and let machines do everything for us. Instead, they believe we should deliberately merge with the technology. It's a movement aimed at using applied reason and tech to eliminate aging and massively enhance our physical, psychological, and intellectual capacities. The argument is simple. If machines are going to become more than human, we have to use technology to actively participate in our own directed evolution so we aren't left behind. Philosopher Andy Clark outlines exactly how this merging might happen through what he calls the cognitive prosthesis view. Here's the logic. Because it is incredibly, mind-bogglingly difficult to engineer a standalone human-level AI entirely from scratch, it might actually be much easier and more attractive to let humans pilot less intelligent machines. Think about it. As we integrate closer and closer with our smartphones and wearables, humans could gradually become cyborgs, eventually utilizing direct brain implants and synthetic sense organs. In this view, AI acts as a great cognitive equalizer, a prosthesis for the mind, fundamentally changing our biology and what it means to be a human being. But let's be real, not everyone is going to want a computer chip implanted in their brain. And this sets up a massive, unprecedented philosophical divide for the future of our species. On one side, you'll have the post-humans, individuals who eagerly embrace these radical technological upgrades to completely transcend biological limits. On the other side, researchers predict the rise of what they call the humanish. Much like Amish communities today who carefully and intentionally avoid certain modern technologies, the humanish will actively reject cognitive enhancements. They will deliberately choose to preserve the natural, biological, unupgraded human experience, while the rest of society rockets forward into a post-human future. So, we are rapidly approaching the ultimate crossroads in human history. As Nick Bostrom famously pointed out, the very first superintelligence we create will likely be the last invention humanity ever needs to make. The machine will invent everything else for us. The massive question for all of us is, what happens after we make it? Will artificial general intelligence be the machine that ultimately replaces us? Or will it be the ultimate catalyst that allows humanity to break free from our biological limits and transform into something entirely new? Thank you for joining me on this explainer. The future is coming fast, you guys, and the very definition of what it means to be human is about to change forever.